long before it was published, people were talking about the upcoming book about Sarah Palin by author Joe McGinniss. And that's because he moved right next door to the Palins in Wasilla to do his research, looking over across the yard there. Now, the book hits store shelves next week, and it's full of bombshells. NBC's Savannah Guthrie has a story for us. Hey, Savannah.
Richard, good to see you. Well, Joe McGinniss has been writing about politicians for more than 40 years since his groundbreaking book about Richard Nixon. And he's now focused on Alaska's most famous politician. And to get that story, as you mentioned, he got very close to his subject.
The Rogue, a 318-page takedown of Palin by best-selling author Joe McGinniss, paints a scathing portrait of the woman who could have been vice president.
An utter fraud. An absolute and utter fraud.
You call her a 10th grade mean girl.
Oh, those are kind words compared to a lot of what you would hear in Wasilla today. The thing that I found, Savannah, that really surprised me was that the people who know her best like her least.
McGinniss spent 4 months in Alaska, claims he spoke to approximately 200 people, a mix of Palin's old associates, acquaintances, and former friends. But his book was causing controversy before he wrote even one word.
She had a problem with you living next door.
Well, she did, and I don't know why she did, because...
Really? You don't know why?
I really don't.
But the experience becomes a huge part of the story.
You really became a character in the book.
Well, Sarah made me a character. She's a phenomenon. I said that to Todd when he came tromping across my lawn to confront me about living next door. He said, "Why are you writing about her anyway?" I said, "Well, Todd, I've been writing about politics since 1968. Your wife is a phenomenon. There's been no one like her in American politics before, no one who's come from nowhere to get so far."
In a statement to NBC News, Todd Palin writes that McGinniss is a man who, quote, traffics in innuendo and falsehoods and spent the last year interviewing marginal figures with an axe to grind in order to churn out a hit piece to satisfy his own creepy obsession with my wife. But McGinniss says talking to those who knew Palin convinces him there is much less than meets the eye. He accuses the famed hockey mom of using her children as props and reports she was not much of a mother at all.
People who've known that family for the entire period of time that those children were growing up told me in ways that I found very believable that Sarah Palin was virtually non-existent as a mother.
McGinniss describes a rocky Palin marriage, with Todd and Sarah fighting incessantly and threatening divorce, something they've denied in the past. Another bombshell, McGinniss writes that both Todd and Sarah have used cocaine in the past, a claim that has not been verified.
How do you substantiate something like that?
Well, you talk to somebody who snorted it with her. And you talk to many of Todd's friends who describe him as having been on the end of the straw frequently in his youth. I'm not saying that Todd and Sarah Palin today abuse cocaine or even use it, but there's no question that they both did at one point in their lives.
McGinniss also quotes friends who speak of a sexual encounter Palin had with basketball star Glenn Rice in 1987 while she was a sports reporter for a local Anchorage station prior to her marriage. It's not clear from the book whether Rice admits or denies the encounter, but he told McGinniss, "In a short time, we got to know a lot about one another. It was all done in a respectful way, nothing hurried." He continues, "She was a gorgeous woman, super nice. I was blown away by her. Afterwards, she was a big crush that I had." McGinniss portrays Palin as hands-off when it came to governing Alaska, but a ruthless political opportunist who crushed her enemies and rarely lived up to the fiscal conservative image she championed.
Hypocrite, at the best. At best, she's a hypocrite.
And at worst?
At worst, she's a vindictive hypocrite.
McGinniss says the Palin enemy list in Alaska is long, but acknowledges he talked to few friends.
Do you think you were fair to her in the book?
I think I was as fair as I could possibly have been, given the fact that she told all the people who were closest to her not to talk to me.
Well, in his statement to NBC News, Todd Palin says that former members of Sarah Palin's administration interviewed for a separate magazine story said that Joe McGinniss was, quote, the most disingenuous and intellectually dishonest writer they'd ever dealt with. Palin added, "I'd asked the fathers and husbands of America to consider our privacy when one summer day I found this guy on the deck of the rental property just 18 feet away next door to us, staring like a creep at my wife while she mowed the lawn in her shorts." Richard, that's the story.
Quite a story. Savannah Guthrie, thank you so much as always.